This lesson, entitled Ghosts on the Battlefield, is looking at the events of Act 5, Scene 3 of William Shakespeare's Richard III. The main objectives of the lesson are to understand the events of the scene, and in doing so, to look at semantic fields and literary tropes within the scene. A semantic field is a group or a collection of words with a similar meaning found within part of a text. A literary trope is an idea that recurs, turns up again and again, and is found across literature and quite often art as well. In this lesson, we will look through the scene, we will look at the context of what happens before it, we will go through the scene, and then you'll be posed some key questions to follow up on what we've done. By this point in the play, Richard has descended into a vortex of violence. The list of the dead goes on and on. He has killed King Henry VI prior to the play. In the play, he kills both of his brothers, Clarence and Edward, most notably Clarence, who he has drowned in a vat of wine. He's seized power as King of England, first of all as Lord Protector, but then ultimately as King. In doing so, he's killed his former ally, Lord Hastings. He's killed his two nephews, the princes in the Tower. He's killed his former ally, Buckingham, and he's had his wife, Anne, murdered so that he can marry young Elizabeth. At this point, Henry Tudor, who is heir to the rival Lancastrian claim to the throne, has assembled an army in France to seize back power. They've sailed across, they've landed in Wales near to Milford Haven, and are making their way across the country to meet with Henry to do battle. At this point, they have met ready for battle at Bosworth in Leicestershire, and this scene takes place on the night before the battle. The staging to this scene is quite important. Conventionally, we have the two characters of Richard and his rival Richmond placed on opposite sides of the stage. These represent the two different sides of the battlefield. Now, at the start of the scene, after a conversation about the forthcoming battle, Richard dismisses his men from his tent and then goes to sleep. During this time, he's then visited by a series of ghosts of the people he has murdered. The first ghost to visit him is the ghost of Prince Edward. He begins, "Let me sit heavy on thy soul tomorrow. Think how thou stabst me in my prime of youth at Tewkesbury. Despair therefore and die." He then turns to Richmond, and his words are very different. "Be cheerful, Richmond, for the wronged souls of butchered princes fight in thy behalf. Of King Henry's issue, Richmond comforts thee." Now, as you can see, we have a variety of different types of language used in this scene. The reference to stabbing is a very clear reference to violence, as is butchered princes. There's a semantic field of violence which is used when talking about Richard and Richard's actions. As the scene continues, we see more of this semantic field, and we also see references to religion, the positive side of religion used when referring to Richmond. The next ghost to visit is the ghost of King Henry VI, who's been killed by Richard before the play. "When I was mortal, my anointed body by thee was punched full of deadly holes. Think on the Tower and me, despair and die. Harry VI bids thee despair and die." He then speaks to Richmond. "Virtuous and holy be thou conqueror. Harry, that prophesies thou should be king, doth comfort thee in thy sleep. Live and flourish." As we can see here, the associations between Richard and violence continue. Henry VI refers to his body being punched full of deadly holes. He refers to how Richard killed him. In the same way, he refers to Richmond as virtuous and holy. If you're virtuous, you are good. Holy is obviously associated with positive religious values. So we see this developing semantic field of violence attached to Richard, and an emerging semantic field related to virtue and religion and goodness. The next ghost in this scene to arrive is the ghost of Clarence. He again addresses Richard to begin with. Let me sit heavy on thy soul tomorrow. I that was washed to death with fulsome wine, poor Clarence by thy guile betrayed to death. Tomorrow in the battle think on me and fall thy edgeless sword. Despair and die. He then speaks to Richmond. Thou, offspring of the house of Lancaster, the wronged heirs of York do pray for thee. Good angels guard thy battle. Live and flourish. Once again, the language of violence is used with Richard. In this case, Clarence refers to his own death, which is depicted there, where he was apparently drowned to death in a vat of wine. To Richmond, again, he refers to good angels guard thy battle, more language associated with religion. The tasks that you've been set for this scene are as follows. The first task is to summarise what happens in the scene in 3 to 5 bullet points, so a simple summary of events in sentences. Remembering that the scene starts with Richard talking to his men on the night before the battle. He's then left alone by his men and falls asleep. On the other side of the stage we have his opponent, Richmond, and then we have the succession of ghosts visiting. If you look at your copy of the extract of the scene, more ghosts visit after this point, but we've kept our focus in this lesson on those first 3. Challenge number 2 is asking you to look at words linked to violence used with Richard. We've been through in the lesson there and highlighted some of those words so that create this idea, this semantic field of violence and danger around him. Similarly, for question number 3, we'd like you to find those examples of words and language linked to religion, which is used with Richmond. Again, if you look back in the video lesson, you'll find where we've highlighted some of those. The final challenge is to watch some of the different adaptations of this scene that you've been given. Once you've seen them, your job is to explain which of those you prefer and give some clear reasons why.